another edition of Gov Tech Today. I'm Russell Lowery.
And I'm Jen Saha.
And together we try and bridge the gap between .com and .gov. Maybe there's a huge gap, I think, coming up. It's hard for everybody, whether you're .com or .gov, to track regulatory changes. And I thought this would be getting a lot more attention, but DGS has initiated a rulemaking process to dramatically change the small business and DVBE procurement process. The hearing was on October 3rd. The comment period was open for weeks before that, but I didn't see a lot of traffic across my feed discussing it. Why don't you bring the audience a little up to speed about what it is that the department's proposing?
So there were some legislative changes that have sort of necessitated this rulemaking process. And one of the big ones that everyone saw was putting that 25% goal for small business, meaning of the dollars that the state government spends, 25% of those will go to small businesses. There's also a 3% goal for funding to go to disabled veteran business enterprises in the state. And the small business number has always been a goal. Now it's a statutory mandate. There are a lot more teeth if you don't meet that goal, and a lot more requirements for tracking, reporting on that goal and how your department is doing. I think what happened is we might be in a scenario where people might not be meeting that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, we have missed it in the last 2 years. So now that it's statutory and not necessarily a recommendation, but a mandate, I think people are getting a little more serious about it.
One of the things that caught my eye about the proposed regulatory change was the specific call out for technology. So there's been some comments within the technology space that it's just not possible. And I never thought that was true, but the regulation specifically says the 25% does apply to technology procurements. What impact do you think that'll have on the technology procurement process?
I think it really does level the playing field. And it is difficult. It's tough to find people to provide useful functions that are of this DVBE or small business inclination. You know, we're sort of dominated in this space by the Mag 7. But what it means, I love being an optimist and looking for an opportunity, is that those big companies are going to have to really beef up their benches and include small business partners in what they're working on.
And that's exciting as a DVBE small business tech provider. I see that. And the way I think about it is some of the larger partners that we work with have standing meetings with departments where they have an installed base and they're problem solving, and they're just aware of the future in a way that we're not, because we're not regularly meeting with departments in the same way. But now departments are going to require that participation with the small business component. So we're going to be looped into those conversations, hopefully more. But I also see it as an opportunity for some of the larger players because it's another contracting opportunity. What does this mean that they can do a small business DVBE off-ramp procurement? What does that mean for the actual signing a contract and getting the technology in the system?
So there has been this sort of little known off-ramp, and it's called the SB DVBE option. And what it says is basically if your contract is under $250,000 or $249,999, something like that, that you can solicit bids from 2 small businesses or DVBEs and award one of those. They don't have to be on a state contract. They still have to comply with all the state's terms, conditions, rules, requirements. But these contracts are super easy to do, right? If I don't have to post it for 30 days, ask for a bunch of bids, I can literally just say, I would like 10 licenses for this. Hey, you small business and you small business, give me a quote on it, and turn around a contract. I've seen it done in as little as a day.
Wow.
It's a huge opportunity for small
Wow. Okay,
businesses.
explain that. I mean, I think that's something our listeners, whether it's .com or .gov, will be extremely interested in. So this is this is a circumstance where obviously the department's done its research. They know what they want. They have budget authority and approval, and they just want to buy something they already know they want to buy. So rather than going through an extensive RFP process, they
Yep.
already know what they want. They do they look up on the SLP? How do they determine who they're going to send the small business opportunity
So
to?
that's a great idea. There's also a database of small businesses and the services that they provide. And every single department has a small business liaison. Those are a great resource too, if I'm a department. But people don't even really know about this. It's like one of the best kept secrets in government as like an easy, expedited two quote method for really making something happen very quickly.
That is exciting. I see for some of these smaller bids, we recognize that for $3.5 million is a completely different animal than
Well, yeah.
$250,000.
I mean, and that's the ticker here. So the change they're talking about making, like, remember, this was capped at $250,000. You can do some substantial stuff, but you can't do a big project for $250,000. So the regulations that are moving through the process right now increase that dollar amount limit from $250,000 to $3.5 million, which is kind of a game changer.
Yes, absolutely. And we make it a process. If we get, this is a real example that from just this week, but a department reached out and they had a small business DVBE off ramp procurement they needed a response to, and it was for $100 worth of material. We respond to 100% of those when they're emailed in, but the back and forth, the interaction, the procuring the thing they wanted
It probably
to
cost
buy,
you more than
more
$100
than
to reply to,
to
right?
reply to. But the relationship with the procurement officer and a new department and a new
Being a great partner.
being a good
Yeah.
partner, whenever you want to do that, we want you to call us. And if you call us, we will respond. That's completely different on a $3.5 million order. And it's, can we respond? Can we fulfill that order? And for us, it's putting the partnerships in place to be able to respond to those larger orders.
I mean, and that's incredibly large. Like, I work with a Fortune 100 company, and from their mouth, every deal in our pipeline for the next 24 months is 3.5 million or less. Like, we could drive our entire state business
through
that
this.
is in the 9 figures through this small business super expedited option.
Wow.
Now, they're not a small business, obviously, like stating those numbers. And at first glance, if I'm a big business, I'm like, wait a minute, this is messed up. This doesn't seem fair. How am I supposed to compete? And I'm an eternal optimist, so we try to make lemonade out of these things. It's part of what we do for our clients. But my recommendation is, like, you better find yourselves a great bench of small businesses that you can partner with,
right,
to drive business through this option, but also fulfill the state's goal of contracting with small businesses. And, like, the added benefit is you're supporting a small business. Those are incredibly important in our economy. So having that benefit of it too is just incredible.
Well, I see this as a huge opportunity. In your experience, with so little attention to this, what sort of, it is obscure regulatory process. It went through the normal notification, but I don't think most people have alert triggers for
Right. It wasn't
DGS
like
website.
headline making.
Headline making.
Yeah, I mean, you
How will
sort
small
of.
businesses know about this? How will the big businesses adjust their partnerships? what do you expect that rollout to look like?
So the Department of General Services right now has closed the comment period for these proposed regulations, and it's very lengthy and involved, right? Like they have to write a whole statement of reasons for why they're doing this, and that's important because if you look at that $250,000 limit, it was put in place in 2006. We've been long advocating like, hey, this needs to adjust, like with the economy, with inflation, something. If you adjusted that number for inflation, it would be at about $1 million. 3.5 million is obviously much larger than that. They did their analysis, they pulled their data on impacts to small businesses, on the small business economy in the state, and used all that data and reason to come to this $3.5 million number. Some people are going to be upset about it, and they probably got some snarky comments during their comment period. So what the department's doing right now is absorbing all those comments, taking the feedback from the community, positive and negative, and they will finalize these regulations once they get all of those reviewed. It can take up to 90 days. Like it's not super quick.
It's not super quick, but if the comment period ended October 3rd and they had the hearing, this could happen. It could happen before the end of the year, but certainly before the end of January of 2026, we could be operating in that new environment. You interact with technology leaders from both .com and .gov every day. Just give our listeners a sense of what that conversation looks like. You're in a meeting with a .com client, in a meeting with a chief technology officer that wants to do this purchase, and they're thinking about this lengthy, more difficult contracting period. How do you help your client? How do you introduce this? What does that conversation look like?
So I think there's going to need to be a bit of a marketing campaign. Just the fact that people don't know that there is already this small business option. I see bids out all the time, 30 days for a $200,000 bid. It's like, you don't have to do that. There's this easier way.
Right.
So there is going to have to be sort of an education, awareness, marketing campaign by the state, but any smart vendor is also going to jump on that and amplify it, right? Like it's part of what we do. When you go in to meet with a department, they're like, I love your product. This is great. How do I buy it? Like our job as a vendor community is to walk them through that from a vendor standpoint, but also pointing to the state stuff. Like, here are the rules. Here's something from DGS that tells you how to do this, and knowing sort of the state processes to help them help themselves, right?
Right. So it'll be the education process with the vendor. When you think about this, are you trying to educate the chief technology officer? Are you trying to educate procurement staff? The technology officer just says, I want to buy this. They're not necessarily thinking about the vehicle, the contract vehicle. Some do.
Yeah.
And some don't. There's wide gaps in the knowledge of this process within state government.
Yeah.
Who are we trying to educate on this?
I mean, it starts with procurement officers, and that's who DGS is going to talk to and push out these changes to. They're going to have like
tell them it's an option.
They're going to have like a procurement bulletin, but you're right. Like a business leader doesn't read the procurement bulletins, or a CIO doesn't read the procurement bulletins. So it's going to be incumbent to sort of work all three legs of that procurement business stool, right? So you have procurement, you have the business, and then you have like your fiscal yes or no, do we have money to do this kind of branches. You have to work with all of them to get a deal done in any government department. And so bringing it to all of them and saying, hey, did you hear about this? Did you know that this is an option now to make this easy for all of us? I think that's going to be sort of the winning combination.
Is there anything left to do for the business community that would want to comment or shape this regulation in any way, or is the close of the comment period and now we're all just waiting for the 90 days?
We're closed for comment, so there's no official way, but I think just socializing this and the benefits of it, if you're in support of it, would be really helpful. The fact that like no one really heard about this,
Right.
is sort of astonishing to me, but also an opportunity, right, to share this information and to drive awareness of our small business goals and how California, through their spending, is supporting the small business economy.
Well, that seems like a great place to end. It seems like a great opportunity for both the state, big business, small business, a step forward to make it easier to do business in
I mean, that's the
California.
bottom line. We want to make procurements easier, and this just gave everyone a huge increase in the tool that's going to allow us to do that.
Awesome.